But Immaculate, Sydney Sweeney is tapping into many different genres right now. She's sort of all over the place with her movie selection. I think she's trying out a lot of different stuff, and I like that for her. She just did a
Mm,
rom-com for Sony, Anyone But You. Solid movie, super successful, over $200 million at the box office. She
really
did the
good.
reality movie last year for Max, which was critically acclaimed. She's coming off of Madam Web, not so successful, but she took her stab at a big franchise picture. She'll probably make a more wise decision in the future on that front, but she did everything strategically because her doing that movie allowed her to do Anyone But You, so she certainly got a win from that. But now she's tapping into horror, and tapping into psychological horror, and doing something a little bit different compared to what we've seen her done in the past in her young career, as she obviously is growing and becoming a bigger star as the weeks and the days go by. But this is a movie we got a chance to go check out to see. That we got a chance to go check out and see this past weekend. So with all of that out the way, man, I'll pass it to you. What did you think about this new movie, Immaculate?
Yeah, just for people listening who don't know what Immaculate is about, I'm gonna go ahead and read like a quick synopsis of the movie. Cecilia, an American nun of devout faith, embarks on a new journey in a remote convent in the picturesque Italian countryside. Cecilia's warm welcome quickly devolves into a nightmare as it becomes clear her new home harbors a sinister secret and unspeakable horrors. And so, again, long story short, Sydney Sweeney's character is a new nun in a new place, and the place is weird. That's really what the movie is. And it's fine, man. It's fine. Like you said, I'm really glad that Sydney Sweeney is trying new things. In fact, I remember a long time ago, just whenever she kind of popped up or she was having her moment in Euphoria, part of me was like, I wonder what this girl would look like in a horror setting. And I think it took us a while to get there. But this is that. And I think her performance is fine. And part of me just wishes she was in a slightly better movie. But yeah, the movie's okay. I think it's very, in some ways, formulaic, but it's very stylized, and I like some of the ways that it's stylized. I like the environment that we're in. I like the way. I think I like the production design that this movie is set in. You can very much feel this new, I guess, Catholic environment that her character is kind of involved in. That's one of my favorite things about the movie. I think just the way it feels. I could tell we were in a very specific place, but yeah, it's very formulaic. It feels like a movie I've seen before. But I think some of the emotion is crazy. There are some jarring things that happen. There are some things you just technically do not expect to happen in certain ways. But for the most part, yeah, it was fine. I was somewhat entertained. There's a couple slow parts. I'm like, all right, are we getting to it? What are we doing? Because for a while, like at the beginning there, it did ramp up a little slow for me. But I think by the end, I was like, huh, all right, that was all right. And it turned out to be, I think, one of those movies that I would suggest for like somebody to watch on like a Friday night, but I'm not necessarily going out to say this is the best movie you've ever seen. And so overall, man, it's a fine movie. I'm really happy for Sydney Sweeney for trying new stuff. I hope she continues to try new things. But yeah, Immaculate was cool. It was okay.
So Immaculate, it's obviously taking a lot of cues from Rosemary's Baby, Roman Polanski's Rosemary's Baby, and in doing so, it's tapping into one of the most iconic and revered horror
Mm-hmm.
movies of all time. So you can obviously see the connections that can be drawn there, and I think that that's a good thing, of course, to do that particular story, but to set it in an entirely different way. Rosemary's Baby is obviously, at the time, it's an urban movie. It's set in New York City, present day at that particular moment. But this one is taking place in a convent in Italy, in a different country. And obviously Sydney Sweeney's character Cecilia, coming into this world that she's somewhat unfamiliar with, is it's obviously placing her in a fish out of water scenario. And that's where most of the interest in the movie is, just kind of seeing her react to the things that happen, the strange, weird shit that happens around her, and her having to
Mm-hmm.
come to grips with, like, well, what is going on here? Like, what is this all about, really? I was sold one thing, but it appears to be something a lot more sinister underneath, and that's interesting for a while. I think the problem is that, unlike Rosemary's Baby, that character, a lot about her personal life. This one, you don't really know anything about Cecilia. You don't learn a ton about her backstory. There's a couple of things there, but she's not really a well-developed character. Again, I think a lot of the movie, because it is
Mm-hmm.
relatively short, is mostly just her experiencing the craziness around her, and ultimately finding out this mystery of what's happening to her and what they are doing to her. And that can be effective at times. There were a few jump scares that were pretty decent. They were pretty good and
Yeah,
well timed. I was like,
you're
oh,
right.
this is
You're right.
actually the best jump scare I've seen in a while, because
Yeah,
oftentimes they
I agree.
fall on deaf ears, but they do some good scares here and there, somewhat build the tension in a decent, credible way. But I think by the end of it, probably the biggest, or at least one of the biggest problems with the movie is that, for me, the threat doesn't really seem all that significant. Like, the threat is like, it is what it is, but it's not like the craziest, most psychotic thing, in the world. Obviously, it's crazy for the context, but it just
Hmm.
didn't feel, I hate to say it this way, it didn't feel as evil as I think it needed it to feel. I think it had to go even darker and into an even deeper place. Like, it was some weird shit going on, but it's like, well, all right, that's cool, but if you can just like escape, if we can really just get you out of here, then that's gonna solve everything. And I think that they just kind of lost some momentum there, and they lost the emotion
Hmm.
of like what the gut punch could have meant. It didn't feel like that there was like truly a big orchestrated plot. It just felt like it was something that a couple of people were trying to do, and it was like, all right, well, that's weird. We don't really understand why, but I guess we're just gonna go with it. So it doesn't have that weight that I think it needed to have, and ultimately it doesn't have the depth or the explanation behind why certain things are happening that I think needed to be explained throughout this movie. Could have been useful, especially for the characterization of certain people in the film. But the last 5 or 6 minutes are really, really good. Sydney
Hmm.
Sweeney goes to another fucking gear entirely. That is one reason to see it, to just see where she goes from just a horrific standpoint, from a, I guess, a scream queen standpoint. Like, she just goes to a different
Literally
register
scream.
entirely. It's a crazy ending to a film. It ends on a pretty harrowing note and a harrowing visual, and it's good. I liked it. I just wish that there was a little bit more of that for the entire movie, because they take a long time to kind of get to those places that make you feel uneasy, that make you feel uncomfortable about what's happening here. But it's solid, it's decent. It's certainly not the worst thing that she's done in recent memory. Of course, Madam Web is sitting right there. This is a calculated and good move for her, I think, to just showcase her ability to maneuver multiple genres and to do different things. And that's what I'm getting out of her, that she's a really talented actress. And I think that she's the best part of this movie. Her performance is the best part of this movie. And
Hmm.
she can clearly carry future movies in different genres across multiple studios, multiple film types, and hopefully she gets more interesting work in the future. So we will certainly have to stick by and see. But folks, those are all of our thoughts on this brand new horror film, Immaculate. If you've checked this out, hit us up and let us know what you think.